What's up guys, this is Zonafan here with my review of Star Wars: The Book of Boba Fett. I'll be going over what I liked and didn't like about this series, which may include some spoilers. If you end up enjoying and want to see me cover more upcoming Star Wars shows this year, I'd love it if you could subscribe. When we see Boba Fett's return in Mando Season 2, he's still an absolute beast, stealing the show and giving us some memorable action scenes, but with a new edge this time. Thankfully, his new characterization mostly carries over into the Book of Boba Fett. I just wish we got to see more of him kicking butt and actually using his jetpack. But even without his armor, he's still a force to be reckoned with. This series has a lot of fun moments, but overall could have been better in its execution. My main issue with this series is its bizarre structure. I wasn't a huge fan of the combination of the flashbacks with the present day scenes in the first 4 episodes, because if these sequences are going to take up an entire episode, why not just get the flashback stuff out of the way and then cut to the present day stuff? The flashbacks also could have been tighter, and in some cases probably shortened and only taken up the first 2 episodes and maybe the third one. Besides that, I enjoyed a lot of the exploration of Boba's character during the flashback scenes. He comes to terms with his past as the son of Jango Fett, who is only ever raised to kill and carry on his father's legacy. It's through his time with the Tuskens that Boba comes to adopt their values of trust and loyalty in his new relationships, as he's forged into the leader he needs to be if he's to succeed as the new daimyo. As for the latter half of this series, which is, at times, basically Mando Season 2.5, I wish they could have saved all the stuff with Din and Grogu for Mando Season 3, instead of rushing through that character development in the Book of Boba Fett. This way, Grogu spends more time training with Luke instead of him being back with Din an episode later, and now everything's back to normal. Don't get me wrong, I loved what we got with Din in Chapter 5, especially because Grogu's out of the picture, which gives us a compelling look at Din as he returns to his life of bounty hunting. But deep down, things haven't been the same since his son left. When Grogu eventually returns to Din in the finale, it was a sweet moment, but it felt rushed. I wish they allowed more time for them to do their own thing for a bit, which we all know can still be a really interesting story. In an ideal world, I think these changes, along with each episode having a runtime of at least 45 minutes, would have given the Book of Boba Fett an overall more focused narrative as we follow Boba's time with the Tuskens and then cut to him as the new daimyo of Tatooine as war between him and the Pike Syndicate builds throughout the rest of the series, albeit on a much larger scale. Now, apart from the numerous characters featured in The Mandalorian returning in this series, we're also treated to a BD droid, Black Chrysanthemum, and Cad Bane, all making their live-action debuts in the Book of Boba Fett, which was great to see as someone who's played Jedi Fallen Order, read the comics, and watched Clone Wars. So yeah, there's a lot of characters to keep track of in this series, and it was nice to see that most of them served a purpose in the larger story. As someone who's seen Clone Wars and The Bad Batch, my jaw dropped when I saw Cad Bane's silhouette in Chapter 6. Seeing him and Boba's relationship come full circle in the finale was also pretty cool, but I think I speak for everyone when I say I wish we got more of Cad Bane in this series before he meets his untimely demise at the hands of Boba Fett. His character was a good fit for the story, but to someone who may be seeing him for the first time, they might be confused as to what the rest of his story is, unless they're willing to check out the Clone Wars. And I've noticed that's been a recurring thing in these new shows lately. And I think we're going to continue to see this be the case as more of these fan-favorite characters from animated series such as Clone Wars or Rebels make their live-action debuts in these new Disney Plus shows. As for the new characters, the only 2 that stood out to me would be the currently unnamed Mayor's Majordomo and Garsa Fwip, both of which I really came to enjoy. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of the Mayor's Majordomo. I found him to be kind of annoying, but in the later episodes, and especially in the finale, he turned out to be a pretty fun and goofy character, and I 100% ship him and Peli. As for Garsa Fwip, I mean, what can I say? This is just good character design, and I'm still not okay after her and Max Rebo got blown up. Like, she was an angel, and then she became one. Well, I'm definitely gonna get clowned on for that. My huge crush on her aside, she's actually a pretty cool character. Alright, aside from those 2, the other new side characters introduced in this series weren't all that interesting to me. And now, here's my ranking of each chapter in the Book of Boba Fett from worst to best. To start off, we have Chapter 1. This was my least favorite episode of the series, and I found that it dragged on towards the end. Chapter 3 was better, but the speeder chase at the end really took me out of it. Everything about that scene was just awful. It was so painfully slow, and I'm still feeling kind of meh about the mod gang.
This is not looking good for you.
Now, Chapter 2, that was a genuinely good episode for the most part. We got some cool scenes with Boba and the Tuskens, and I love the part where they're all working together to take down the Pike's long speeder, which was easily the highlight of this episode. My only real nitpicks are the inconsistent depiction of the Pikes in live action and the Like a Bantha line, which has been memed to death at this point. Chapter 4 was yet another solid episode. We finally pick up with the events of The Mandalorian as Boba saves Fennec Shand, and we see the beginnings of their relationship. Boba gets the Slave One back, and we got this masterpiece of a shot because of it. Now, something that was a little strange to me in this episode is that when Boba goes searching for his armor in the Sarlacc, he's barely hovering over it, and then it latches onto his ship. Not exactly the smartest thing to do. Regardless, it was still cool when Fennec dropped that seismic charge into the pit. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I was still on the fence about the Book of Boba Fett because it had yet to get me genuinely hyped to see what happens next. But when I heard Mando's theme, I just knew that things were about to finally get good. Chapter 7 was by no means a perfect finale, but boy was it fun. Seeing Din and Boba fight alongside each other and using all their gadgets was an absolute blast, and exactly what I'd been wanting to see from these two. The stakes felt higher, and this episode offered some excellent action as everyone came together to take down the Pikes on Tatooine. Besides the main crew, a lot of the other characters got some time to shine as well, which was nice. Cad Bane was another highlight of this episode, and seeing him and Boba's long-awaited rematch was tense and satisfying as it brought their history full circle in a poetic fashion. For the most part, this episode was a satisfying conclusion to Boba's journey in this series, and he has finally gained the respect of the people of Tatooine. My main issue with this episode is that the battle felt small, and I wish it was occurring on a larger scale rather than just the center of Mos Espa. Chapter 6 had a lot going on, which included some awesome Star Wars moments. The deepfake Luke Skywalker from the Mando Season 2 finale had me a bit on the fence, but seeing the progress they've made after hiring YouTuber Shamook was a night and day difference and an amazing technical achievement. But there's still some work to be done in the voice department. Seeing Luke and Grogu training was the highlight of the episode, and Grogu getting back in touch with his Jedi side was adorable and awesome at the same time. Not only did we get a flashback to him during Order 66, but we also see the return of Cad Bane, which I was not expecting, and his duel with Cobb Vanth was exciting, and there was just such a tense atmosphere in that scene. I loved it. While this episode felt thought out and gave things not pertaining to the actual main character of the series time to breathe, it left me concerned for the finale. Finally, my favorite episode in the entire series was without a doubt Chapter 5, The Return of the Mandalorian, and this was perfection. It set up some exciting stuff for Season 3 of The Mandalorian and gave us an excellent story filled to the brim with pure Star Wars magic. Bryce Dallas Howard's brilliant direction on this episode is the reason I want to see her continue to work on future Star Wars projects. And if I were to go over what I specifically loved about this episode, this video would already be longer than it needs to be. While the show had a rocky start, I enjoyed a lot of the latter half of the Book of Boba Fett, but would still consider it my least favorite series to come out of the Disney Plus Star Wars era. It's not a bad show, but it fails to be great as it struggles with its strange plot structure. Regardless, I still enjoyed it and thought it had some pretty cool stuff, but I also have some pretty mixed emotions. So I'll give it about a 7 out of 10. Hopefully we get a second season because Boba Fett still has so much potential, and with the right crew behind it, I think next season could be just what we needed. What did you think of the Book of Boba Fett? What was your favorite and least favorite episode in the series, and why? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to keep talking Star Wars, consider checking out my Discord server using the link in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like down below, and if you want to keep up with all my future Star Wars coverage this year, I would greatly appreciate it if you could also subscribe to my channel with notifications on. Your support really helps out, and until my next video, this is zonafan signing off.